Welcome back, everyone, to theCUBE's coverage here. We are in our Palo Alto studio. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. We have our studio at the NYSE on the floor, and we're connecting Silicon Valley and Wall Street between the two studios as part of the CUBE and the NYSE Wired community. Brian Anderson is here, the Global Field CTO at Cato Networks. We had the folks on the East Coast as part of the East Coast thread. He's been on, obviously doing his work and teaching students, bringing in the next generation, of course. You guys are big leaders in AI and cybersecurity, which is the hottest area. That's where all the stuff kind of surfaces. That's where we got the first idea to do this AI for CFOs, because CFOs are brought in because, man, risk management, the jewels are the money, the data is the money. You got to protect, as they say, protect the cheddar. Everyone wants that cash. That's all the hackers are going in for it. So, Brian, welcome to theCUBE. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
The AI Innovator Leader Series is really targeted around surfacing the conversations that matter most around as companies look at their business model, okay, and the technology strategies that they have under the covers to make it scale. And we talk about this all the time, business model transformation, whether it's CFOs or AI agents, the people on the front lines, whether it's developers and or business people, low code, no code, they're going to be implementing. They're going to be prompting, writing, querying, voice activated. You're going to have agents going to sit on top. You're going to have a whole nother application wave coming. And as every CISO or CFO or CTO I talk to, when I ask about generative AI, they go, it's just another application. Like, oh, now they're oversimplifying it, but they're not wrong. You got to have that security piece. Okay, great. So if you buy that, you go, okay, what's the security? So innovation, but maintaining the posture is really the core conversation. Your reaction to that, and what's your observation around kind of that dynamic? Because there's so much going on. You don't want to get ahead of yourself and open the door to the hackers.
Well, that's right. So AI can be used in so many different ways, but part of it is analysis, forensic analysis, and identifying where these threats are, and also how to take action against those threats. So for folks that don't know, Cato Networks is a leader and market segment definer, if you will, for the SASE market, Secure Access Service Edge. And so as a part of that, it's really the convergence of networking and security in one cloud-native platform. So we've been able to, since the inception of Cato, bake in AI as a part of our infrastructure and part of our business model and part of our platform.
Last week, we had a big cyber security week in NYSE. A ton of folks from Tel Aviv were in town, VCs, and the kind of the early stage startups were coming in there. You guys are well on your way, so congratulations on the business success. Talk about some of the momentum. Obviously, you guys are, it's got escape velocity.
Absolutely.
Talk about some of the business momentum and the drivers for that.
Absolutely. So founded in 2015, there was an announcement by Gartner to create the space of SASE in 2019, which we this year were announced as a leader in the single vendor SASE space. We've exceeded 200 million in revenue. We have 2,500 customers, and that leader statement really is evidence of the progress that we've made in the platform. So it's 5 major platform announcements that we've made this year. In January, we have XDR, which is extended detection and response, and then we have EPP, which is endpoint protection in January. In June, we announced managed SASE for our partners and resellers and technology alliances. And then in October, we have digital experience monitoring, which kind of speaks to IT operations. And then most recently, this is the industry's first IT/OT security, the industry's first SASE native platform to deliver that capability.
It's interesting as you kind of lay out the portfolio, if you will, or capabilities, portfolio capabilities. The expansion's interesting, right? Where'd you guys land? What was the first thing, SASE, and then expand out? And what were some of the drivers of that?
Well, see, the initial, so MPLS networks are expensive and they provide limited connectivity. So Cato provides a global private backbone to give you connectivity to all your branch locations, your data centers, your cloud environments, to enable you to access your applications for any user anywhere in the world. So connectivity is the foundational component, and then security services delivered on top of that. And we continue to innovate and continue to introduce new security services on top of that on a quarterly and annual basis.
You mentioned SASE native IoT security is interesting. Not a lot of people are doing that. Can you talk about what that means? What is SASE native IoT mean? What are some of the things behind it? Why is it such a hard problem? Why is it not many people doing this? I mean, first of all, are people doing that? And if so,
right.
Peel the onion back on that one.
Absolutely. So the history is that networking and security has been comprised of a variety of point solutions, and it creates challenges because it introduces a lot of complexity. So what SASE does is it converges that to one platform, and so this is the first native developed IoT OT solution on top of a SASE platform like this. What's unique about Cato is that there's no acquisition of technology. It's not a daisy chain of proxies and other technologies that we integrated together to make this offering. It's all in-house developed, and everything that that Cato provides is developed internally. So we own the network and we own the software and the hardware. So
what's the benefits? I mean, take me through like what the impact would be. What's the alternative? What would they would have to deal? Would they be exposed? Would it be? Are you replacing sprawl? Are you
right? So the more solutions that you have to manage, the more exposure that there is. I mean, you have appliances that you have to install within your own environment. You have to patch those, configure them, maintain them, and you have to log into each one of these, which creates operational complexity at scale. How many people does it take, and how much time does it take to administer your environment, reducing that risk and reducing your attack surface? So specific to IoT and OT, there have been other solutions that specifically focus on that, but looking at the larger infrastructure of ecosystem of things that it takes across the security portfolio, we can now just have that be baked into the same platform that you manage your internet firewall from, or WAN firewall, or LAN firewall, or access policies, and that sort of thing.
So you guys are in multiple generations. Again, I kind of preface by there's a lot of startups that you guys are well on escape velocity. On the cloud side, what generation are you guys in right now with the cloud solution? Again, all this is kind of be connected to the cloud. You got because you're talking about edge. When you talk about IoT, you're talking about either industrial edge or we got computer vision on the edge. All kinds of stuff's happening in this distributed computing framework, which we all know is great. That's where it is. I mean, that's what cloud operations is now.
Right.
What generation in the cloud are you guys? Take us through some of the durable pieces of the puzzle here.
Right, so Cato's position is we are the third generation, the next generation of IoT and security as a platform. So it's platform delivered. And so baking AI into some of these components, talking about how IoT and OT can play into that, using AI to identify your devices, identify what you have in your network and fingerprint those devices, and also be able to identify application behaviors associated with those, and maybe calculating a risk score for these applications as well. So once you understand the footprint of what is in your environment, both kind of devices, IoT and OT, and then being able to take action from that. For example, how many of my IoT devices are calling out to the internet? Or how many of them are calling to other applications, just getting visibility to that, and then being able to lock that down with one central set of policies on the same platform that I administer all the rest of my infrastructure from.
I was talking to some folks last night at the reception, the NYC Wired reception, and a lot of networking nerds there, so like I was in my glory there, riffing on, but we always have the same kind of conversation, which is, that's the way footprints are. Lateral movement's always been a big thing. Like, so when people are on the network, they got to go from point A to point B at some point, whether they come in from spear phishing or they're hiding out in plain sight. They got to work the land, right, as they say. So network is a big part of the traffic. Obviously, this seems obvious, but like it's not easy, or is it easy? Explain the benefit of the network layer security and why it's so instrumental for companies.
So Cato has a global backbone, and we have one point of inspection. We call it SPACE, Single Pass Cloud Engine. So we can see everything that happens over the network. And speaking to how AI is leveraged in this, we then can run models on top of that to identify anomalies that happen in your environment, our XDR platform. So detection and response, I could tell you if there is a user that's acting in a way that's abnormal, or if lateral movement is happening within the environment. Because we have such a rich data set, and think of every network flow, or every flow across your network has an identity card tied to it. I know who it is that's coming on my network and what they're accessing. I can now pinpoint anomalies that happen, whether it be an experience anomaly, a security anomaly, a network anomaly. Those things are now easy to pinpoint, so they become actionable insights on top of our data that we already have.
Brian, one of the things I've heard over the years, again, 15 years of theCUBE, I've heard every story on security. And some of them, at some point it was, I won't say desperate, but everyone's throwing the kitchen sink at everything. You mentioned proxies and all those things, whether it's technical or just products, tools. I used to joke on theCUBE with Dave years ago, the tool shed is packed with tools and stuff way in the back collecting dust. No one uses it. So the platformization is certainly a cool wave. But a lot of people try to tackle it at the data layer, and you've got silos. As you get leaner and meaner at the network layer, is that the value that you're getting closer to the truth, or is it that the data silos an issue? What's the core paradigm shift that makes what you guys doing compelling vis-a-vis the other platforms?
Well, to your point about there being silos, as soon as you have the ability to centrally manage this, as soon as your context and the data that you're looking at traverses all these aspects of your environment, you now have truly one lens that you could then manage that from. And it really opens up your resources and people to focus on more strategic areas of risk within your organization. So instead of having to deal with the complexity of so many different solutions within the environment, you now have the target focused on risk reduction and mitigation across this environment.
I mean, it's not like security guys have a lot of free time to begin with, so never mind. It's not like they're getting more beer time, although I've heard that on theCUBE before. You know, freeing up beer time is, code words for saying, hey, I can spend time with my friends. But this is an impact of the customer, and you brought up time. Skills, personnel, culture, burnout. In the security industry, these are all huge issues. How does the AI piece and some of the things you guys from a security standpoint alleviate that? Because, I want to be more productive, want to work on the craft of security, not just the mechanisms. There's a real movement towards the craft, the trade craft of cybersecurity, which is basically stop the bad guys, which is an art and a science. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, if you look at the sheer amount of time that it takes somebody to identify a problem and go to try to mitigate that issue, this is where like anomaly detection for XDR comes into play, giving you actionable insights to take action against that. And the SIM market, historically, there's taken in so many feeds of data and then trying to make sense of that data and then needing to take action that with something like SOAR to go to remediate that at the various places that you have remediation capability. What SASE does in the same place that we have observability and we see this traffic, we could then take action on the same platform and mitigate that in real time. Take an example like DGA, domain generation algorithm, right? Where a random domain is created and data is attempted to be exfiltrated to that domain, and the 0 day is around the time that the domain is created to when you can identify that as a bad domain. And so if it's a reputation service, how much time does that take to come back around to get into your environment? Where Cato can deal with that in real time using AI. And so identifying these, that's one example of how that just a time and risk reduction can work with a cloud native platform that could mitigate in real time.
Yeah, you're a field CTO, so you get to play on both sides of the fence, so to speak. Internally to Cato, you get access to all the technology, roadmaps, secret sauce. Then you go talk to customers. So I have to ask you, with the CFOs that have been coming through our program, there's more of a buyer group now that's making decisions. It used to be the old classic, he or she's the decision maker, recommender and influencer. Now you have multiple decision makers, multiple influencers and recommenders inside companies because the stakes impact many people. And the CFOs are coming in because they know the financial wiring of things, the money flow, which again, back to cyber, they want the cash, they want the data, where's the value? So everything's targeting the value, whether it's cash or data. If you're JP Morgan Chase, I want some of that cash. If I want to exfiltrate data, I want the best data. So the CFOs are involved. So talk about this idea of the motion to convince a customer, one, on the economic and the stakeholders, and then two, the technology buyer groups. Is there a trend towards buyer groups? If so, can you share your thoughts on this?
Sure. I mean, investments are made to acquire new technologies to either save money, make money, or reduce risk. And as long as you can resonate with how you can effectively make a company more effective at what their operational goal is, delivering a service or manufacturing a product or whatever it is that the business is, that provides, as long as you can align with how you can make them more effective, saving money, making money, and reducing risk, which the simple convergence of delivering everything through one platform simplifies that and opens up your resources to do more strategic work as opposed to dealing with the complexity of many different point solutions that historically you'd have to manage. The digital experience monitoring component speaks to an IT operations role. For example, if someone is unable to access an application, why is that the case? And then you open up a case and help desk has to go investigate that. How much time does it take that person to realize that it was the host itself that ran out of resources, or the Wi-Fi router didn't have good connectivity, or the LAN device failed, or the application just stopped responding? So hop-by-hop analysis on that with digital experience monitoring gets more value out of the same platform that you have for connectivity and security. Now speaking to IT operations roles as well.
And that's to your point about the 0 day too. Every minute counts, right? So what's the time compression you guys are seeing between detection and response? Because you don't want to say, oh, well, I got a 0 day out there, and sometimes you don't even know it's out there. You want to get it as fast as possible, and these blockers, hurdles, or whatever you want to call it, just increase the lag it takes to. It's like playing a video game. No one wants to be lagging on anything.
Right.
So cybersecurity, it's like, what's the compression? Scope the value time you guys are seeing with Cato.
Well, now that we have components like AI running models on top of this and doing things in real time, there's real-time inspection and then there's off-band kind of analysis. So inline inspection, mitigating something like a DGA attempt or even cyber squatting or different things that we would see there. So there's a significant reduction in time and effort. But then you also have the other piece where it's like out-of-band analysis. So like user behavior or XDR events that are over the course of time. It's not the one event that you would block, but the combination of these three things happening in the course of a week makes that a suspicious user or a suspicious combination of things, indicators of compromise that you would call it, that make it to where you need to do further investigation and further lock down that environment, right?
Awesome. You mentioned earlier about time, focusing on time to do other things. What are some of those other things that you're seeing? You don't have to name names of customers, but like in your customer base, when they get the value of Cato, what are some of those things that those practitioners are working on? Can you share categorically? Beer time is a good one, but that's more free time. But like when they say, okay, I got some free time, what are they working on? What do you see the shift of the focus?
Well, I think in many cases, if you have to deal with a large, complex environment with multiple solutions, sometimes there are just blind spots you would have because you're dealing with the biggest fire that you would have to deal with immediately, right? And so moving on down to something like IoT, OT, we give you full visibility, so there's no blind spots anymore, and we help you bring all that to the forefront and administer that from one place. So you now have a full scope of what you have within your infrastructure as in relation to risk and management, connectivity, and all those things are managed from one platform.
Well, Brian, I really appreciate you guys coming on. Cato's been great guests on theCUBE. Recently, we had a surge of Cato activity. Again, you guys got escape velocity. Congratulations on all the momentum. I guess my final question would be more self-serving on my part is as we look at, as we come into 2025, we got CES, NRF, you got Mobile World Congress, you got a lot of big events where this conversation is going to be front and center, the role of AI, because CES is a device show turned into an AI device show, because device to core is going to be, the devices are on the network, that's an edge, right? So you got MWC, that's telco, which is becoming an AI/distributed computing show where semis to edge is the top conversation. What should we be looking at this year to serve our customers, the audience out there in terms of the kind of content we should be unpacking? What would be your advice to us as we try to squint through the noise and hone in on the bullseye of the content?
Yeah, I think that monitoring the trends around AI and how it's used for both good and bad. We've seen ways that there are cracked GPT engines that are selling on the black market to be able to generate things like malware, and there's also like the fake the ability to create fake identities using AI and that sort of thing. So these things are all trends that we would see that need to be on the watch out for. And so mitigation around that is something that we're actively fighting against as well on the Cato side.
I know you're not a CFO, but since we have a CFO kind of orientation this week, have you observed any kind of areas where CFOs are dabbling in, or are there certain areas that are bubbling up where the CFOs are getting more involved in either the architecture or the technology versus, obviously they approve and they got compliance and risk management? Is there any areas we see where they have to get involved or proactively should be involved?
Well, I think that speaks back to, saving money, making money, and reducing risk, aligning to how efficient you can operate a business. Where are the cost savings? What's the TCO? What's the ROI around some of these things? And if you can help resonate with, this is the efficiency that we're introducing in your business, you will regain these resources back to the organization. That's, I think, really what resonates mostly when we're speaking about to CFOs, in my experience.
I just say to them, security breach is a critical extinction event for your company. Okay, that gets there. Oops. That's what we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. Brian, thanks for coming on theCUBE. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much.
All right, we are here, theCUBE, the AI leaders in Silicon Valley, Cato Networks. We're going to bring you all the coverage continuing here on theCUBE. I'm John Furrier, your host. Thanks for watching.